So I want to go more into the meat of this argument from a bunch of angles, but first let's just tackle the big one, which is in the long term, if you're right, if this actually hinges on some amount of mistrust in the existing system, aren't there are many options here though, because central banks are now looking into this as well. There's a chance that the system will co-opt at least some of the logic of blockchain into their system. It's not A or B. It's not, centralized system versus a decentralized. Or don't you agree that there are many scenarios in which nation states start to issue and use it as part of their system, whilst not necessarily getting rid of fiat currency? So, I mean, there are many intermediate scenarios here, aren't there? And what would that mean if that's the case?
Okay, so let's define a couple of things. Fiat means that it's a centralized party that dictates the value. So the value comes from a point of authority, whether that value is represented as paper money, as a digital form of money, or as stored on a distributed ledger is quite irrelevant. So as on a distributed ledger, we would call it a centrally backed digital currency, CBDC. These are all forms of fiat at the end, and I am not of the opinion that fiat systems will go extinct. I actually think they will flourish. They will go on a blockchain. They will stay centralized. Things will still be priced in them. I do not see Bitcoin or any other form of a truly decentralized ecosystem to take over a centralized ecosystem. And the reason for that, and we see this all the time, is decentralized systems are only good at one thing, and that is you don't have to trust an individual party. But if there's no one that you can trust because you just trust the entire system, who's in charge? Who's taking control? Who is adapting to change? Who is growing? At the end, the only constant is change itself. So we will constantly change. So how will Bitcoin make sure? And we saw this, and this is the interesting thing now. Over the last 2 months, we saw a completely new trend emerge, and that is the focus in Bitcoin on green energy, on the mining aspect of it. And that's a completely new topic. And this topic was never really brought up over the last, 10 years. And suddenly it comes up. So what happens? What happens is Michael Saylor steps up and says, let me take charge of that. Let me kind of create this council that cleans everything up. That is something, that's centralization. But is this bad? No, it just means that it just highlights the difficulties we have with a truly decentralized system. And I see this with every decentralized financial ecosystem. There's always change, always. And so will we ever see a mix? A mix by definition can't work. We will see parallels. We will see centralization and decentralization. And sometimes the decentralized side is more interesting, and sometimes the centralized side is more interesting. The reason why I just don't understand how a mix would work, because a decentralized system that mixes with a centralized system will always become centralized. And so to me, there's nothing bad with this, right? Governments, I don't see a way where governments will actually try to use a decentralized form of money, which would be gold. I don't see them doing that because it loses a lot of the power that they have and that they use from a centralized fiat system. But that doesn't mean that it's either dollar or gold. These things coexist, and I think that's really healthy and that's supernatural. But you need to have this escape route, especially in the digital world, and that to me is what the DeFi space actually allows.
I like the way you're arguing here, because I see a lot of the opposite by people who don't really think it through to the end. I think that some of the fascination around decentralization generally comes from people who don't like centralization, point blank, and who are assuming that this is going to kind of topple all of the bad centralized authority structures that they never really liked. You seem to have kind of, grown out of that idea in a certain sense, and you're not really thinking of it that way. That is interesting.
To me, I just know that at the end, you will always I mean, the best example on why a truly decentralized system will not survive in the long run is the bystander effect. If you don't have, if you have two people in charge, no one is in charge. And we have seen this over and over again. If someone needs help, the more people there are around, the crazy thing is, the lower the chance that someone will help that person. It's the bystander effect, been tested over and over and over again. So as long as us humans don't significantly change in the way we feel ownership, the way we feel responsibility, and I don't see this over the next couple thousands of years, truly decentralized systems will work for certain periods. Then someone needs to step up. People tend to forget that. Satoshi stepped up at the very beginning when there was a bug, an integer overflow bug, and suddenly there were, I think, trillions and trillions of excess Bitcoins in the system. He stepped up and said, this decentralized system is going to become centralized in this very moment. Let's change something. Boom, worked, all fine. Barry Silbert, people just blocked this out, stepped up in 2017 after years of debate on how does Bitcoin continue. He called for the New York agreement, suddenly SegWit 2.0 was there, and boom, suddenly there was a change. In this very moment, centralization happened. And I think we're seeing the similar thing right now. That to me is nothing negative. It just shows that any system, whenever there's change needed, needs to have leadership. It needs to have people that step up, that actually can make this change happen. Where to me, this true decentralized character comes in, that people step up by merit. They don't step up by authority. They step up by merit. And I think that's what to me is this true fundamental form that to me actually describes this decentralized ecosystem. And I think that's the really important part. And we don't see this in many, many other ecosystems.